So I think the value gap there is kind of the reason why I don't want to work at a full-time job. Therefore, this is pretty much a life and death struggle. Hi everyone, I'm Ziheng. Welcome back to my channel. Yesterday, a colleague from my old job called me and asked me about the technical issues about the job. And it got me thinking. I haven't really been reflecting on whether the job was worth taking and what role does it play in the general gap year landscape. So what have I learned? What are the pros and cons? And whether I regret taking it or not? I figured that there are plenty of people who are taking gap year for all sorts of reasons. But generally, I think that most students take gap year because they want to reapply to universities. So they didn't get the offer at their first trial, therefore they want to apply again. At least that's the case for me. So in this context, for students who take a gap year to reapply to universities, is it worth it to pick up a full-time job or part-time job while having this gap year? Are there better alternatives? Is taking up a job worth it? So these topics are what I want to discuss in this video. I posted a previous video on my experience working on the full-time job, how I got into it, and what I learned from it, as well as why I left the job. So if you're interested in the details, you could check out my previous video on that. But in this video, I'm just going to skip over the particulars and talk about what I think are the pros and cons of getting a full-time job while you are having a gap year. Let's get into it. So let's talk about the benefits first. There are two aspects to this. The first is the money, and the second is the experience. Initially, I went in for the experience. I don't expect to get paid a lot because initially we have agreed that I'm just going to be paid minimum wage. So I consider it as sort of an internship, but not really so, because technically you don't learn about a profession. So for me, I worked at a motorcycle spare part trading company, so I sell spare parts and tires, but I mostly deal with the e-commerce work. So selling products online, operating the online store, uploading products, and deal with customer queries, those kind of things. So by the nature of it, I don't really get a lot of opportunities to socialize with other people except online when dealing with customers. But I think generally speaking, if you get yourself into a full-time job, you get far more opportunity to socialize with other people, with your colleagues, with your boss, or your customers. And that's a crucial respect in which taking a gap year at home or going for a job is fundamentally different. I'll talk about the mental health aspect first. I worked for the company for 6 months, and I would say that my mental health during that period wasn't particularly good. You might be able to sense that in my previous video where I talk about my experience. And I think there are a lot of reasons which resulted in my mental health being not so good. I think the main reason is the tension. As I've said, initially I worked as a minimum wager. Not sure that's the correct way to put it, but I earn minimum wage. I just thought of it as kind of an internship where I go there, I learn about stuff, learn about the operations, and once I felt I have gained a lot from the experience, I could just leave the job freely. But after a while, I realized that I could achieve much more and started treating it differently, and I was completely dedicated at the job. Oh gosh, I couldn't express how happy I was in the initial period. There are some things that kind of put me off. For example, the physical labor. Nobody likes physical labor when you have the choice. But most of the time, I just do it online marketplace stuff. So dealing with the Shopee store and online customers. And I was completely dedicated. I felt that I have done a very good job. I still think I did. I did a marvelous job. Even if you are my employer, you really couldn't complain. So sales skyrocketed, and we just bring in a very big additional income stream from the online marketplace. So I negotiated for higher pay. I mean, that's the natural thing to do. Initially, I was working for the experience, and afterwards, it was more and more about the pay. And I felt that my passion for the job was slowly dwindling because I felt that I have reached the point where my pay has already reached the cap that the employer was willing to pay. Any additional effort will not translate into a higher pay for me, a higher incentive for me. So I decided, well, there is no space for growth here, and I decided to just quit the job. So I went back to here, which is my original setting, and started focusing back on my university application stuff. That includes scholarship applications, interviews, and university applications to other countries. So it was all very interesting back then during the period of struggle. So if we look back at the entire course of my gap year, the first half period was war. So it was like, go on. At that time, I was doing my TMUA and my history A-level, so it was all very tense. I went to my grandfather's office and just studied all day long, starting from around 8 in the morning until 6 to 7 in the evening. Now that I look back at it, it always made me wonder how did I achieve it at that time, because right now it seemed impossible. Everything's so slow now. What's achieved has been achieved. University application was done, and right now we're just reaping the rewards of our effort. But anyways, I quit my job and went back to my original lifestyle, making some silly videos along the way, but everything went back to normal. Now, what are the benefits of getting this job? The experience is the main thing, because right now I'm very confident in my ability to set up an online store, regardless of whether it is a website or using Shopee or Lazada to sell your items. So that part is the simpler part. Actually, while I was in college, I already started a website to sell items, and I tested it. It worked. It was sort of like a drop shipping website called Shopify. I'm pretty sure you would have heard of it. But I was forced to close down the store because Shopify started charging me very high rates, which I wasn't prepared to put up with. But at any rate, I didn't sell a single item. So yeah, it was just a venture that lose quite some money. But obviously, we're not here to talk about my failed business venture. We're here to talk about my full-time job. And the greatest thing is the income, of course. When you get that additional income, you could choose to spend it or save it. I'm generally a very frugal person. I don't spend a lot. Basically, I just spend on necessities and on upgrading my channel, buying equipment. For example, this tripod, which upgrades the quality of my videos. You could see that I regularly posted some community posts regarding the new equipments I've bought, including microphones or new lighting, because this is my hobby. I love this a lot. Even the YouTube channel was a very big driving factor which caused me to quit my daytime job, because it was quite impossible for me to run my YouTube channel alongside a full-time job, which took up most of my time. And even at night, you were too tired to think about anything else. I always think about the past. Why haven't I filmed a lot of videos during the period where I was working full-time? Was I just procrastinating, or was I just wasting my time? But if you look at it retrospectively, you'd realize that it wasn't quite possible for me to film YouTube videos during that period, because I was just so busy and too tired while I get home. So I really shouldn't be too harsh on myself. But as I said, the biggest benefit is the income, which should be quite obvious, because when you have this additional money, you could save and invest it and sort of build up your portfolio. It's quite good for a student to start doing so, because when the compound effect kicks in, it does grow into quite a big amount of money eventually. But other than the income, the second largest benefit is the experience. You learn how to deal with customers, some tips and tricks in online marketing, how to set up a good product catalog and graphic design, those kind of things. You learn those better if you practice it instead of learning it off a book. At the initial phase, you will just keep learning as you expose yourself to new tasks. But once you reach a phase where you've done literally every single task before, and the skill level that you gain from the job just sort of levels off, and that's when I've decided to quit. Because I just realized that regardless of how much more effort that I put in, it probably wouldn't account for much, because the growth phase where the business level just skyrocketed has already passed. Of course, you could still make it go higher if you put in disproportionate amount of effort to make it grow. But I just figured it wasn't really worth it, because there's a cap to my income. So I figured it wasn't worth doing for the money itself. In terms of experience, I felt that most of the things which I ought to learn has already been learned. I am a very fast learner, and I quickly adapt to the tasks I do. So that's about everything that I gained from the full-time job. Now, this is an interesting experience. I do not regret my decision to take up this full-time job. I learned quite a lot, met some new people, understanding the situation, especially the socio-economic conditions of my country. It was an eye-opening experience, and I genuinely felt that I've grown because of that experience. So in terms of whether you should or should not work full-time during your gap year, it really depends on your circumstances and what you are aiming to get. If you're in need of an income stream, maybe working full-time in your gap year could be worth it, because you achieve your purpose. But if that's not what you're after, you're just looking for the experience, then you might reach a point where you just wouldn't learn new things anymore. The next thing I want to talk about are the cons of getting a job during your gap year. The first thing is definitely the constraint on your freedom. So if you don't work on the job, you have plenty of spare time for you to do the things you want, to pursue your hobbies and spend time with family, or basically just work on your university application and what you're supposed to do. But once I got into the job, it was a completely different time schedule. I was working long hours every day, 6-day weeks. It felt like I don't have personal time to reflect on the direction I want to take in my life. So for example, I know that working on my university and scholarship applications is good for me, as well as working on this YouTube channel. Although working on the job also gives you a lot of opportunities to create value in people's lives, but you're rewarded for your effort to a smaller extent. I am quite sure that if I follow the strict work schedule of my previous job to my YouTube channel, I would be able to run it very well. I believe this holds true for every kind of jobs or careers. You need a lot of hard work and discipline, and one day you eventually succeed. Since I've already learned a lot in my previous job, I've decided to quit it and learn something new, which is obviously media production and this kind of things. Previously, while I was in college, I was very non-committant to my YouTube channel. I just film and post video when I feel like it, and I didn't do much editing. I don't think I even put captions for my previous videos, and the audio quality is kind of terrible. Now I want to upgrade that and to create a more professional feel. And you could look at my previous community posts where I basically just updated every equipment I have, including the audio, the mic I'm using, as well as the lighting, the tripod and everything. So all these equipments are bought to improve your viewers' experience, and therefore I think of them as a very valuable investment. Obviously, this channel is currently running on low budget because I'm still a student, so I don't have a lot of money to buy expensive equipments. But one day in the future, we will get there. Now, where were we? We're talking about the cons of working full-time. Besides the points which I've just mentioned, I also think that at this stage of your life, especially while you're taking a gap year as a student, you have plenty of chances in the future to work on a full-time or part-time job. So you really don't have to do it now. You have very little to lose. You have no money. I mean, if you come from a normal family without a lot of inheritance. So I would say that why not treasure this opportunity, this golden period of your life to work on something new or try to create something for yourself. So that's what I was thinking while I quit the job. I feel that once I built this YouTube channel up from the ground, and after 2 to 3 years or even longer in the future, I will look back at my previous decisions and feel proud of it. So as I've said, you just have to keep working and strive towards excellence and just keep improving, and one day you'll get there. But if you're working at a full-time or part-time job, even if you constantly improve, there's still a hindrance between the value you create and the value you get. Do not expect people to randomly just give you a promotion. You have to initiate the conversation yourself. And then again, it's very rare for you to negotiate such that the value you create is equivalent to the value you receive in your salaries or wages. So I think the value gap there is kind of the reason why I don't want to work at a full-time job. Just the inherent unfairness of employer-employee relationship, which caused me to want to create something for myself. Therefore, this is pretty much a life and death struggle. So in this very random video, I hope you don't think it's random, I hope you get something out of it. I would say that 5 years from now, I have a feeling that this channel will be very successful on YouTube. Well, how do I know this? Because I will just keep working hard, and this channel is just going to remain active. But nevertheless, it is still about the direction that you are taking. If you're a person that does not have a clear direction in mind as to which way you're heading towards, and you're not sure what career you're going to pick up in the future, then I would say that yes, go get a full-time job or part-time job just to occupy your time on something productive. Because while you work, you also create value, and it's good for society for you to do so. And at the same time, you receive wages. And if you don't really have a clear direction in mind, then picking up a job is pretty much the best thing you could do, because you don't have other priorities, and it's better for you to just earn some money so that you could elevate the financial conditions of your family. I would pretty much advise you to do so. But if you have something more important to do, regardless of what that may be, university application, or even a YouTube channel, or pursuing a hobbies, you should just stick to your priorities. Getting a full-time job isn't really a very glamorous thing to do, but I would say that for the first few months of getting a new job, it's going to be a life-changing experience for you, especially if you work in an industry that you're not familiar with. It was a great experience for me, although after a while I decided to quit, but I wouldn't regret the period while I was working. Obviously, there are some trade-offs, but I think if I quit my job at exactly half a year later, then it was a very nice blend of getting new experience and still focusing primarily on your university admission stuff. So it really depends on your personal circumstances. I hope this video is helpful to you. and hopefully enable you to make better decisions for yourself. If you are currently taking a gap year, I hope you can maintain your motivation and productivity. If you really want the experience, I encourage you to take up a full-time job. If you feel that you suffer from some mental health issues at the job or things you don't want to bear, then don't force yourself, because a gap year is really the time for you to reflect on your future direction. And I think a gap year should be taken to pursue your primary purpose, regardless of what that may be. Or else taking a gap year to repeat the same thing that you did isn't going to worth it. So that's it for this video. I hope you find this video useful. If it is, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.